If you're trying to find process improvements, look for Excel spreadsheets, look for handoffs between people, look for paper. So those are the three things you should look for as finding process improvements. Every relationship that you have is built on trust. Okay, if my boss doesn't trust me, the executives don't trust me, I'm not going to get anywhere. Okay, so having a quick win that's successful is going to immediately build that trust.
Welcome to KPI Fireside. Our mission is simple: to improve companies and to improve careers through continuous improvement. In every episode, we explore the spark, the moment, the mindset, or the method that ignites real change. Whether you're just starting out or leveling up, you'll find the insights and inspiration to fuel your next improvement. Welcome back to KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. I am your host, Keith Norris. Our guest today is Bryan Schmidt. Bryan is a CPA, an author, and a recognized authority in finance automation and strategic financial leadership. Bryan is passionate about bridging the gap between traditional finance functions and the modern demands of digital transformation. Through his work, he helps organizations streamline financial operations, improve accuracy, and unlock strategic insight by leveraging automation, thoughtful governance, and a future-ready mindset. Bryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Keith. Excited to be here.
We'd love to start this podcast off with a little section we call the Spark. And this is really, how did you get your start in this world of finance transformation?
Yeah, basically, Keith, okay, I got my CPA in 1990 out of college, okay, worked for a company for 23 years in Illinois. They were a very large company. They were $1.2 billion pre-COVID. They were about 600 million when I left, so very large company. But in 2014, everything was manual. The ERP was manual, the bank was manual, AP was manual, expense reimbursements were manual, everything was manual. The crux of the problem was in 2014, I got a letter from it was Sage at the time. Sage sent us a letter saying Sage Platinum's no longer be supported. You'll get no future upgrades. I remember talking to my staff. I'm like, that's not a good idea. We need some system that's going to run with us, okay, and improve with us, okay. So we need to get a new RFP system. So I did a formal RFP. Went out to bid. We landed on Sage Intacct. Looked, it was definitely the best choice that we had. Implemented that in 2014. Implemented a new budgeting system, 2014, adaptive. 2016, we implemented AP automation, use. 2017, we implemented Concur for expenses. 2019, we implemented a new bank, new lockbox. 2019, we also implemented a new monthly close tracker. I basically automated all of finance. I think I probably saved my company probably $800,000 with all the improvements I made. And in fact, I got nominated from Sage Intacct. They gave me Sage Intacct Hero Award in 2019. Actually flew me out to Las Vegas for free at the time. I was one of their top 4 clients out of 12,000.
Wow, that's very cool. You've got a book. Is the book out currently? It's
The book's
relatively
out.
new, right?
Book's out. It's relatively new. Came out in October. I released it. It's called From Bryan Schmidt to Me. It's called Finance Automation Blueprint.
And tell us what we'll find in that book.
Basically, here's what's going to be nice. If somebody buys the book, it's going to tell you what order to do things in for improvements. It's going to tell you the vendors. It's going to tell you the vendors for plus and minuses. It's going to tell you the cost. If you go on these websites, the vendors aren't going to tell you on the website what the cost is. I tell you in the book what the cost is.
Tell us about what kind of systems is it that you're referring to for folks, because some of the folks are going to be in finance, some of the folks are maybe going to be in some different functions.
Yeah, basically, okay, I consider the ERP system, the accounting system, is kind of the heart of finance. You need a good ERP system to do anything. So first thing you should do is tackle the ERP system if you have a poor ERP system. That's going to take you probably 4 months. From there, probably the next one is probably AP automation. That only took us 6 weeks. Okay. And what you're doing is basically, number one, you're eliminating the paper. 2 is you're reducing the error rates. Okay. 3 is you're able to redeploy staff. The nice thing is, all the staff savings that I had, I didn't have to eliminate any positions. I basically redeployed staff.
So you were able to save money without cutting head costs necessarily, huh?
Yeah, and actually, too, I also learned something, too. If I was going to cut staff, I was going to be very honest with my staff, saying, I'm going to eliminate your position. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you X number of months to look for a new job. Okay, I never lie to staff.
Yeah. I think that's a good topic. I saw some folks debating this the other day and on LinkedIn probably. And, we're recording this before Christmas time, and the
Right.
topic of like layoffs came up, like, oh, do you do, if you know that it's going to happen, do you do them 2 weeks before Christmas? Do you do it after? If you have an opinion on that.
I mean, there's really no good time to have a layoff, but I would be honest with people. I see too many posts on LinkedIn. Oh, gee, they gave me 2 hours notice before I was laid off. Okay. Oh, gee, okay, our whole department was let go. I'm like, be honest with people. Okay. This is their jobs, it's their livelihood. They probably have a family to support, they have mortgages to pay. Just be honest with people.
Yeah, I think that's I'm with you on that. I think that the best time to let somebody know is as soon as you have, like reliable, real information. And it's always unfortunate when I hear about big layoffs in big companies because it always feels like a failure to get something right, like a failure to plan ahead and get people
Yeah.
realigned. I mean, one of the big topics right now that everybody's is on everybody's mind is what's AI gonna do with, all the jobs. So that's a big concern I know for a lot of folks.
Well, when actually, Keith just mentioned AI. AI is definitely going to, I think, change jobs. Okay, like for bookkeepers, for example, I'm not sure you're going to need bookkeepers anymore. Okay, but I still think you're going to need CPAs. You're going to need accountants. Okay, to do the analytical work. Okay, but what it's going to do, like for AI, it's going to help me with probably forecasting. It's probably going to help me with analysis that I'm doing. I was a big user of Power BI. That's also in my book too. If I got stuck on Power BI, I could easily go into AI and ask it for the right code.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found interesting with AI too, is it's really expanding. I guess if you think about software as a service, SaaS was this wave that came through the enterprises over the last, 15, 20 years. And it took this idea of software from something that only the IT department ever dealt with to now all of the other functions are involved in buying and procuring software generally. But it feels like this AI thing, particularly with it's taking a lot of the stuff that was maybe like developer activities and it's making it more accessible to more people. So
Yes.
it's bridging the gap between what coding is and who can be a coder, you might say, who can use code to solve their problems. Very interesting. So as you think about some of the transformation projects that you've ran, I'm curious if we could get into some things like decision criteria. How did you identify some of those projects and then how did you line them up? Obviously, you can't take everything on at once, but what are some of the decisions that you use?
Basically, what I did, 'cause I report to CFO. So my guess is what you want to do for these projects, you want to find out who your key leaders are. Number one, get them in a room, tell them what your projects are, probably figure out a priority list for you over the next 1 to 2 years, and then figure out what is the cost, what is the ROI, and how do you evaluate success. Actually, after every project I did, I sat down with my staff. Okay, what did we learn? What did we do well, and what do we need to improve upon for the next project? Also, too, when you're going through these projects, definitely get HR involved because it involves people. Okay, definitely get IT involved because it might have impacts on other systems. Okay, and what I also talked to is I would meet with all my key staff. Okay, because obviously they would have to be doing testing on the new system to talk to them about and make sure everybody knew what the roles were. And actually, I had amazing success with the projects I had. In fact, I had one for the AP automation. The CEO knew my name, but he didn't talk to me very much. I remember the day after we went live, he calls me, picks up his phone. He's like, Brian, this is the greatest thing in the world. I can approve invoices on my phone. He wasn't having to get paper anymore.
You know what? There's a couple of things that I find interesting about that story right there. You as somebody who was involved in an improvement project inside of the organization, obviously, you remember that story. It's something that stuck with you. It was impactful for you. But the lesson there probably is for anybody who's an executive is, hey, when something good happens inside your organization, pick up the phone and reach out to people and let them know that you appreciate that. I think, a lot of people inside companies sometimes wonder, has anybody noticed this good work I'm doing?
Well, and also too, okay, too often I'm like, oh yes, the project failed. Okay, I'm gonna pin this on you because it failed. Two is your job's now in jeopardy because it failed. Okay, instead of all right, everybody makes mistakes. Okay, learn from the mistake and move on. Okay, I'm sure the person didn't make the mistake on purpose.
So, Brian, what industry were you at? One company or multiple companies in
I
this
was at one company. I was in healthcare for 23 years. But
healthcare? Okay.
actually, everything I talk about can be applied to any company.
Yeah, yeah. Most of these companies are very similar. So a lot of our audience is involved in business improvement, continuous improvement, Lean Six Sigma.
Right.
Business improvement is how I like to describe it broadly, because everybody, even in a small business, even if you're a solopreneur or something, you've got these business improvement projects that you're taking on. And especially now with AI saying, what can I do to improve my business? There's an infinite list of things that you could do, but the decision-making criteria of what you should do is part of where we need to spend time and where we need to get better at. So it sounds like you were directly involved in a number of like finance department projects. Can you talk to like the projects maybe in like operations or sales and marketing? Are there some other functions where you were connected to those business
Yeah,
improvement initiatives?
basically, okay, we had a warehouse. We had a warehouse. We had probably 50,000 boxes, okay, that we stored off site, probably 5 miles away. Okay, basically, we kept them on an Excel spreadsheet as far as like all what the boxes were. They'd be labeled, okay, payroll boxes for X date. Then somebody would have to drive 5 miles to get the box. They'd get the box, bring it back. Oh, no, that's not the box I need. Then they'd have to go back again to get the box. Okay. I'm like, that's too insane. So I did it wasn't even under my control. I basically saw an opportunity. I did an RFP, got Rico involved. They helped us digitize all of our boxes. All the boxes were now online, and you could actually type in a search, okay, as far as what box you were looking for. It was instantaneous. And then all the information was there. It had OCR technology. So basically, all the information was digitized. You could actually look for the actual documents and actually where you wanted in the documents for what you were looking for.
Excellent. I love talking to finance folks because the finance folks have a particular perspective on most things in the organization. And let's say we're talking to somebody who works in operations, or maybe let's just say operations, and there's some idea for a project that they want to do. I take that one right there. Like, hey, this is frustrating that we got to drive across town. How does somebody who's trying to take this thing that just feels like something that they want to do, how do they package that up in a way that they can get approval to go spend a little money to solve the
Yeah,
problem?
so basically, what the first thing you need to do, and I did this for other projects, okay, figure out, okay, what are the touch points? Okay, how much time is being spent? Okay, I actually worked in finance, so I knew everybody's salaries. Okay, for me, I knew of everybody's salaries. You're probably going to have to figure out what, at least what an estimate is of the salaries, figure out what the benefit cost is. Okay, figure out the time involved, and then do an exponentially as far as figuring out what the total cost is for that project. Okay, for what's doing today. Then figure out once to optimize this, what is going to be the new impact? Okay, and how much time and what are the error rates? Okay, because my guess is all my error rates went down too. And then also too, you want to focus on the time. Okay, how big of a project is this? How many people are going to be involved? How much time is going to be involved? And how are you going to measure success?
So it sounds to me like, and again, this is great. I can tell that you've done this sort of thing a lot because it sounds like it's just, yay, this is easy, right? This is a piece of cake.
For,
We know how
for
to do
me,
this.
it's easy. But actually, Keith, to be honest with you, when I first started doing this in 2014, I'd never done this before. This is all brand new to me, and there wasn't a book I could read on how to do this.
So, Bryan, it sounds like, it sounds like you've done a lot of these calculations. For folks that might not be as familiar with it, it sounded to me like you were taking a look at like the current state versus the potential future state. Walk us through the mechanics of that a little bit.
Yeah, so basically, okay, I'm like, not everybody, if you aren't like a CPA, you might not know what ROI is. ROI is return on investment. Okay, if you want to invest in something, usually the rule of thumb is you want it to be a 3-year payback or less. Okay, all my projects were typically 1 to 2 years. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to figure out for whatever project you're doing, what is the current cost of it? Okay, let's say it's like $100,000. Okay, and then what is going to be your new cost? Let's say it's $30,000. Okay, so basically it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So basically you're getting it paid back in less than a year. Okay, so every finance person, every CEO, CFO is going to want to know what an ROI is. Number one. If you don't know how to do that, partner with the finance and they can help you with the ROI. Okay, that's rule number one. Okay. Secondly, is get your whole team involved. Okay, as far as the project, as far as who's involved, make sure that you have support of the leadership team. And my guess is I would give weekly updates to the executive team as far as how the project's going and if there were any stumbling blocks.
So, in my experience, particularly in large companies, the approvals that are necessary for different types of projects will vary. Let's just take like the biggest ones where there's like capital projects. Like, I mean, if you're going to build a new hospital, obviously that's a very large thing. It's going to require
Right.
a lot of approvals. Let's call, at some level, you've got like the biggest of the big decisions. Was in your organization, was there a level between like capital projects versus like stuff that people could just decide to do within their own
Yeah.
budget?
Yeah. I mean, basically, my approval level, I think, was 25,000 at the time. So anything less than 25, I didn't need approval for. If it was above 25, I had to get CFO approval.
So certainly for capital projects, there's going to be a pretty thorough ROI analysis all of the time. You mentioned connecting with someone in finance. Is there like a job title, a role in finance that you found is typically like the person to go to help with that
Yeah,
kind
and
of
my
thing?
my role was basically controller. So basically, I would say you want to reach out to at least a senior accountant, okay, because they should have more experience. Senior accountant or above. So it could be the senior accountant, could be the controller, it could be the CFO. One of the three.
So you mentioned some of the projects that were part of digital transformation. I'm sure you talked to people out. I mean, in your company, you had a certain path. Every company's on a little bit different, a little different path. What are some of the trends that you've seen over the last 10 or 15 years and some of the ones that are more current? What are some of the big projects that are making a difference?
Well, actually, what's interesting is I'm like, I don't think anybody knew what ChatGPT was 5 years ago. I know I didn't. Okay. When I first started this in 2014, I was doing this all on my own. I was doing Google searches. Okay. But I didn't have ChatGPT or Copilot or any of these to help me out. I think it's far easier nowadays because you can do a lot of these searches online. Okay. And also, too, let's say you want to craft an email to, let's say, the vendor, it can help you write emails to the vendor if you want to.
So it's definitely making a lot of things easier. Do you have any take on what sort of expectations senior decision makers have for how is AI going to improve our business?
What's interesting is I think the pace is quickened. Okay. I think what used to take, let's say, maybe 3 months, I think executives now want it done in a month because of AI. Now, I'm not sure that's fair sometimes, okay, because sometimes you can't speed this up because it still involves people a lot of times, and people need to do testing. My guess is you probably need to reframe that with your executives as far as how long it's going to take and be realistic. And typically, what I would do is I would come up with a timeline, and then basically I would pad it by a week or two just to give me an extra buffer. You always want my opinion is you always want to overperform, okay, and never underdeliver.
Excellent. Does your organization have like a business improvement, continuous improvement function that was distinct from, operations?
Well, we had a project management team, and basically, actually what's interesting is they would bring projects to basically executive team. They would fourth rank them, and then the executive team would figure out which projects had warranty to move forward. So yeah, we had a physical team, and actually, I probably recommend every large company should have that. Okay, because what you want is you want this on the radar. You want the executives meeting on this monthly to talk about.
So I know the term PMO for project management office is used in
Yes,
some organizations as a special group of people that take on some of the more major projects.
that's what we had.
That's what you had. Okay. Excellent. So let's stay on this topic of getting ideas for projects approved and working with finance. How would somebody, I'm thinking particularly in like a department other than finance, like operations, how would they know when they've got an idea that they want to try to get done where they should reach out to somebody in finance and get finance involved?
Yeah, I would say basically, okay, you probably want to get finance involved early because basically involves either revenue or cost. So pretty much every project I've done has had some cost component on it. So I think you always need finance involved.
Let's call it the accountability of the financial element of projects. I know some organizations are great at like starting a bunch of things, approving some things, and organizations come in different levels of accountability to following up on the project to decide, how successful was this? In your experience, what was that zone of stuff that is the right size to at least pay attention to?
Pretty much I would use a dollar amount. So pretty much anything above $50,000. So I'd want some reporting on this. I'd want some reporting on the ROI. I want
Mhm.
some reporting on the success of the project. Okay. And also too, not only successes, okay, like maybe we had missteps. Okay. What were the missteps and how can we avoid this in the future?
So some sort of like lessons learned at
Yeah,
the
exactly.
at the
And
tail
then
end of
also
the.
too, typically, okay, I don't want to keep this siloed, so it wouldn't be just my team that would have these lessons learned. We'd probably document that, and then I distribute this wide to multiple people.
Excellent, excellent. Is there any best practices that you found worked well for sharing those best practices?
Typically, we'd use some sort of sharing platform. So basically, you don't have a bunch of documents going back and forth. We create some sort of like either we do like a Zoom meeting like this today, okay, for sharing the information, okay, or we create the document and we simply post the document out there somewhere that everybody else could view. And also, too, what I'd
And
like to do is that we post a document and then basically we'd ask for editorials. Okay, what did you like about the document? What needs to be improved in the document?
How many different physical locations did your organization have, either at its peak or?
We had about probably 9 different, divisions all within the US.
Okay. One thing that I find interesting in an organization that has multiple sites, particularly multiple sites, the same thing could be said to like even just having two salespeople, for example, is, and this is something where I think finance tends to have a little better visibility into things than some other functions. If I'm working at a site, even if I'm the general manager, I have a pretty good idea how I'm doing in my
Right.
site. I know what my costs are. But it seems like the finance folks tend to get this lens across the organization. You can kind of see the peaks and the troughs, like, hey, how come our cost of goods is so high over here? Or how come our overtime cost is so low over here? And finance tends to be a good source of improvement opportunities. Is that how some of your projects were initiated?
That's exactly how it was initiated. Because like, basically, where I was involved, I was in Aurora, Illinois at the time, okay, which is basically probably about 30 miles outside Chicago. We basically consolidated all our financials, so I got to see everything, okay? And other people that only worked, let's say, in one division, they didn't see the whole picture like I did.
Yeah. So that's probably a good place for companies to figure out where there might be some cost savings. If you got 9 locations and 8 of them have a certain, cost of any sort of expense, and another one is an outlier, either good or bad, that can be an insight into some cost saving opportunities. What about business improvement opportunities on the growth side? Are there some what you would call like very aggressive growth initiatives that you participated in or
Well,
observed?
we had one where basically our credit card volume was growing. Okay, the problem was we would have one person that would have to basically take the call. They'd have to manually enter it in there. Okay, enter in the information. If it's keyed in wrong, that's going to fail. Then they have to do it over again. I'm like, well, there has to be a better way than that. So basically, we set up a process whereby all that information that was, let's say, communicated on the phone was automatically teletyped into the system itself, and we
Yeah.
basically eliminated having a person do this.
Excellent. Now you mentioned that I think you said for most or all of your projects you were able to avoid massive layoffs. Talk to us about how you went about the process of figuring out when you needed to move people around and how you found places for them to move to.
Basically, number one is I knew what their skill sets were already, so I knew what they could do. I knew what their capacity was. I knew basically how much time different things took. And then basically, I would work with my boss, and we'd figure out how to basically redeploy them. Okay, and actually, for a lot of them, here's what I didn't understand. And actually, this also goes in my book as well. The morale went up, okay, after I did these projects because they weren't doing the manual work anymore, and I wasn't expecting that.
Can you think of anybody, and maybe you want to give someone some kudos or recognize someone who brought a project to you that you didn't, maybe before that point you didn't even know it existed, and somebody brought something to you that was a real game changer?
Well, actually, one of the projects we had was we had you're gonna laugh at this. We had basically one bank. We were using US Bank at the time. We were taking checks in. It was all manual. We were probably taking in, I want to say, 300 checks a day, each and every day. Okay, so you take basically 20 working days in a month. Okay, that's basically 6,000 checks in a month. That's a lot. It was all kept on Excel spreadsheets. Okay, all manual. And I'm like, no, we can't be doing this. Okay, so I talked to my staff about this, and we're like, well, why don't we try a lockbox? So we got a lockbox. All the checks went to lockbox. We didn't have people typing this out. We didn't have people doing Excel spreadsheets anymore. I did the ROI on this. I saved 3 staff people for this. And actually, this was during COVID, which was instrumental because I didn't have people in the office anymore.
This episode is brought to you by KPI Fire, the all-in-one platform for continuous improvement. With KPI Fire, you can align strategy, drive execution, and engage your people. So whether you're leading a team or driving enterprise-wide change, KPI Fire helps you deliver real results. Learn more at www.kpifire.com. So how did you learn some of the skills that you did around this business improvement, digital transformation? Was there outside training that you went to? Did your company provide some sort of training?
There was no training. I learned this all by myself. I basically, at the time, because ChatGPT didn't exist, I'm learning this by doing just Google searches. Okay. I remember the first project I did, I'm like, I was scared to death. I'm like, okay, if this fails, I'm going to be fired here. But it actually turned out very well. And actually, I got kudos from my boss.
So I'm sure that, in every organization, there's a lot of projects and things that get done, some of them that might not even be on the radar of somebody in finance, perhaps. But if you were to estimate on a percentage basis, out of 100 projects that were taken on, what percent of them would you say met the expectations for their ROI?
Actually, I did probably 8 very large projects at United Health. All 8 were successful for me. I never had one fail.
What about broadly in an organization? What do you think is a good
Broadly,
hit
yeah,
rate
broadly, I'd
for
probably say 75%.
75%?
And my guess is the reason why the other ones fail is because either they underestimated the cost, okay, underestimated the ROI. People left during the project, so they had a gap, let's say, for people doing the work, okay. I would say probably 75% deliver an ROI, which is still pretty high. I would say the ones that fail, they fail either because they underestimated the cost, underestimated the return on the investment, had misunderstandings with the vendor, could have had turnover in the vendor, turnover at my company, so you have gaps in work that's being done. Those are probably the failures within projects.
Excellent. All right, so let's shift into the idea here is like advice for people earlier in their careers on
Mhm.
this topic. Um, if you had it to do all over again, what career decisions would you make differently, or what would you do the same?
The first thing is, again, as I said before, okay, the heart of accounting system is the ERP. So definitely get the ERP right. Once you get that, then my guess is okay. Here's what I suggest to anybody who's listening to this: go for either big wins, okay, or quick bang for the buck. Okay, if you have something that's only going to take maybe 2 or 3 weeks, do that because you're going to get a quick win. Also, too, you're going to gain support from the executives to know that they can trust you with the next project. Or if there's a bigger project that's going to be a bigger win, focus on that too. But if I had to pick between the two, I'd go for the quick win first.
Start with the quick wins. That's a lot of that's a good piece of advice, and it has been shared in the past. It makes me feel like it's a good piece of advice for people to look for.
Keith, think about this. I'm like, okay, every relationship that you have is built on trust. Okay, if my boss doesn't trust me, the executives don't trust me, I'm not going to get anywhere. Okay, so having a quick win that's successful is going to immediately build that trust.
Excellent. Excellent. Is there one question that you feel like leaders in organizations should maybe ask themselves?
My guess would be, okay, I'm like, all right, what is our error rate? Okay, where do we have errors? Okay. Also, two, are there errors that aren't known immediately? Okay, that we aren't finding out about. Also, two, if we have errors, how are they corrected? How long is it taking to be corrected? Okay. Why do these errors keep occurring? Okay. Nobody wants to get financials and have errors in them. Nobody. Okay. So it's critical that you report the financials accurately, not only accurately, but seamlessly, okay, and quickly as possible.
Yeah, what we touched on this a little bit about AI in the future, but how much do you trust some of these like AI tools that are taking over the the financials?
Well, a lot of times what I do too is I'm like, all right, because maybe I don't really, I'll get like an answer. Okay, I'll get an answer from let's say ChatGPT. I'm like, you know what, that doesn't sound right. Okay, and I'm like, I'll then go to Copilot. That's another AI tool, or I'll go to Claude. That's another tool, and I'll use that other tool to kind of bounce ideas off of.
That's probably a skill that us as humans we use sort of intuitively. Like, hey, I'm going to ask someone for some advice inside my company, and I hear an answer. I'm like, I don't know if that's right. Let me ask somebody else. And you ask somebody else, and they
Well, yeah,
give you a different answer, and you're like, well,
correct.
okay, now I've got two totally different answers. I'm going to go ask a third person, and
That's
eventually,
the exact same thing you're doing.
yeah, that's one thing I find interesting is how much the AI tools they reflect us as humans in a lot of ways too. Like we've all got. Plenty of what do they call them? Hallucinations
Right.
in
Yes.
AI,
Yes.
typos, mistakes that we make, etc.
Right.
Okay, Brian, I want to move into the rapid fire section here. So this is just a series of basically short questions, kind of quick answers. So the most important job of a leader is to blank.
Probably provide a vision, I would think. Okay, where are we going in the future? Actually, if you think about this, okay, let's take any of the large companies. Let's say like Nvidia or Amazon, Chase. Okay, nobody cares what they're doing today. They want to know what is the projection on the revenue and the profits in the future. That's the value of the stock. Okay, same thing with the company. Nobody cares where you're at today. They want to know where you're going to be a year from now, 5 years from now.
That's such a good insight. Do you have a favorite go-to problem-solving tool, template, visual device, formula?
Actually, you'll kind of laugh at this. Okay, basically, I use Copilot all the time. Okay, I use it for personal stuff on my finance. It's my free online therapist as well. Okay, so basically, I use Copilot. But if you aren't If you don't like Copilot, you can use ChatGPT, you can use Claude. They're all free.
Excellent. Excellent. And is there a book that you recommend?
Well, my book, of course. Okay, if I want to laugh at that. Okay.
Okay, give us you can give us
But
another
actually,
plug.
besides that, okay, actually, one of the smartest people in the world is probably Warren Buffett. Okay, he still lives in the same house that he bought 30 years ago. The house is probably worth maybe $150,000. He's a billionaire. Okay, and actually, I always like this quote. This is a Warren Buffett quote. There's only two rules of investing. Rule number one is don't lose money. Rule number two is remember rule number one.
I love it. A funny little story on that topic. A few weeks ago, I shared a Susie Orman quote that said, we got two children and one of them's married. So I sent this message over to the young people in my life, you might say. And it was a bit of advice that said something along the lines of, if you forego that daily cup of coffee for 30 years or 20 years, that you'll end up with $1 million in savings. One of them shot back to me and said, yeah, but you will have missed out on 30 years of beautiful coffee experiences. And I was like, that's a pretty good retort to that savings question.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'm like, actually, Keith, I could probably live on bread and water, okay, and retire multimillionaire, but I really want to have bread and water for the next 30 years.
Yeah, it's like so many things in life, right? It's a tension between two things. Like, saving money, of course, is great, but man, enjoying life is an important piece of the puzzle too. So
Mhm.
finish this sentence. Continuous improvement is.
An ongoing process, I would say. Continuous improvement is never stopping because, all right, you built the better tomorrow, but there's always a new improved product out there that's going to probably improve what you're even doing today.
So true. So true. The only thing we can count on changing, not changing, is change itself.
I would agree with that.
I think it's just more rapidly all the time now, it seems. Okay. Do you have a favorite question? Is there a question that you turn to frequently?
Basically, okay, I'm like, how am I spending my time? We all get the same 24 hours in a day. How am I spending my time? How efficiently I'm being into this? And do I need to pivot with that? Okay, so I always try to quiz my staff on that as well. Okay, where are you spending your time? How are you spending your time? Is it productive for what you're doing?
Wonderful. It's a great question. I have also found that almost everything in life, the big things that we want to do, comes down to how much time are we going to put into making that thing happen, right? Such a good insight.
Hmm.
All right. What's something that you're excited about?
Well, basically, okay, we didn't have time for this because this is probably another half an hour conversation. But my prop firms, okay, basically, I didn't know what prop firms were 4 months ago. I think it's going to probably double my passive income next year.
What is a prop firm?
Prop firm is basically you basically buy a challenge. Challenge typically costs $300 to $500. You set up an MT5 account, okay. The vendor will show you how to set up the MT5 accounts, which I can do on my own now. Typically, pass rates are usually about 60 to 70%. You typically buy, let's say, $100,000 account. You need to get 110 for it to pass. Once it passes, you have a live account that you can trade. Typical returns are 1 to 2% a month. So on this $100,000 account, I'm making $1,000 to $2,000 a month each and every month. I right now have $500,000 in prop firm capital live, which means my income on the prop firms right now is $5,000 to $10,000 each and every month just for trading.
So this is something that you're doing outside of your day job, you might say, as a way to increase your
I'm
personal.
retired, so basically I'm just spending my time doing this. And actually, to be honest with you, Keith, it only requires about maybe an hour a day of my time.
So the kind of thing that more recently has been referred to as a side hustle for a lot of people.
Side hustle. And actually, I've been telling people this. In fact, I have a call with a friend of mine actually on Monday. I told him he's age 40. In 2 years, he can retire if he does this prop firm. And actually, I have $500,000 now. Next week, I think I'm going to have $800,000. I think in January, I'm going to have 1.2 million.
Well, that sounds quite interesting. So as we wrap up here, for anybody who wants to follow you, connect with you, is LinkedIn the best place, or is there a website?
No, I say LinkedIn is probably the best place. Okay. Also, too, here's what I like to do. I like to help people. Number one, I like to provide growth opportunities for them too. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I can then show them, let's say, this prop firm information. I can show them some of the other growth opportunities they have online. Okay. Basically, I think every person should have a side hustle because their job is not guaranteed. They could be laid off tomorrow. They could be terminated for cause. They could have salary reductions. Okay. None of that is good for them.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, yeah, definitely sounds like something I want to follow up and understand a little bit more about. So we'll schedule some time to chat about that. Bryan, is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't get into today?
Basically, I'm like, okay, I didn't start this. I'm 59 now. I didn't start this journey, okay, with the process improvements, okay, until I was basically 47. Okay, there's no right time to start it. I would say just start it now. Okay, and actually, here's my other thing too. If you're trying to find process improvements, look for Excel spreadsheets, look for handoffs between people, look for paper. So the three things you should look for as finding process improvements:
I love that. That's a good insight. Spreadsheets, handoffs, and what was the other one?
handoffs and paper.
Paper.
And actually, Keith, okay, I did this. I remember doing this in 2014 because I'm like, I was in Excel hell. And for my budgeting topic, I had 480 spreadsheets and 185 workbooks, all assembled manually, all linked together. And I remember I was there like 6 o'clock one night. I'm like, I was there, only person there. I'm like, I got a reference there. I'm like, good Lord, how can I get a reference there? Because it took me another hour to figure out the reference there. I typed into Google Excel hell. I got 3 million hits on Excel hell.
Well, that's funny. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Been
It's
a
been a
pleasure.
fun conversation. I appreciate your insights and the wisdom and experience that you've shared with us. So for our listeners, if you would like to suggest a guest or ask a question, we encourage you to put something in comments. We'd love to have comments. Give a like, a subscribe. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn also, Keith Norris. And this concludes this episode of KPI Fireside, a continuous improvement podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to add a comment, like, follow, subscribe as appropriate on the social platform of your choice, and share the podcast with your friends or colleagues who are as passionate about continuous improvement as you are. You can find us wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, keep driving progress and sparking change.